It's almost the end of the month, and that means it's time to look at what to expect for next month, the month of November. Well, things have been developing quite fast over the month of October, and we have seen some changes starting to happen in South Africa. We have seen the long-awaited beginning of some arrests for those implicated in corruption and other crimes against the people. And we've seen some developments in our response to the COVID crisis and the lockdown crisis, not only by being all the way down at level 1, but with the new plans, stimulus plans that the President has released and so on. What we really see astrologically is a mixture of many different kinds of forces that are operating at this particular time. And the truth is, that's going to lead to a little bit of an unstable period with highs and lows of one extreme to the other. So if we take the corruption charges as an example, yes indeed, we can see that happening in the chart. We can see more of that happening. And at the same time, in the same zone of the chart, the place that we look for those big kind of crimes, we can also see more of them happening. So perhaps not so unexpectedly, the President's grand plans to inject money and jobs into the economy gets the corrupt very excited, because on the one hand, while some of the corrupt are busy being arrested, on the other hand, some of them are busy rubbing their hands in glee as new funds look like they probably are becoming available to them. So it's the same battle that we always face with this country, and there's absolutely no doubt that while certainly the arrests and the pursuit by the hawks of the corrupt continues, the corruption itself also continues. And so that's a good symbol for the two opposing forces that are very much operating in the country at the moment. It's happening within the government and the governing party as well. On the one hand, astrologically at this time, we can see the President having a period of strength. Now remember, as I've said for many months, he's actually in a situation where he is largely surrounded by enemies. At least part of his keeping his cards close to the chest behavior is because of that. But at the same time, it does look like this could be a more effective period for him. Hopefully, starting with those plans for his economic recovery that he recently released, and because the chart's showing him in actually quite a strong and influential position at the moment, some of that is going to start taking fruit. We still have to face the issue of the mini budget, the interim budget that will come out in the near future, and unfortunately, not unexpectedly, financials are not looking strong at all for the country at the moment. That is still a weak point. While the rand will continue to hold steady, the financial situation is plagued both by ongoing corruption and seemingly, at least at this stage, minimal effect of those plans. And yet the President's gain in power and influence through the announcement of those plans is what's important, and might be also what's important to him. The charts do show a lot of different kind of international wrangling and interacting than we've seen before, and part of it at least is of course his position with respect to the continent and with respect to the rest of the world. So some of what he's doing does seem to be related to visibility and status and position in the world, not just as an ego trip, but to kind of assert his role as president, because he is well aware, no doubt, of how much danger he faces with respect to that role. There's half the party is determined to get rid of him, and unfortunately in the course of the coming month, those problems continue despite the increased strength we're seeing from these plans that he's rolling out and so on. So at least part of what he's doing is maintaining his political career in the face of great adversity, moving from keeping a lot of things quiet and secret to himself because he can't expose himself too much to his enemies, to showing his strength, and what he has to do at this time is show his strength, which hopefully will pick up on the momentum and allow him to vanquish some of his opposition within his party. So this is the one extreme to the other, delicate balancing game, all of these things that the month of October is all about. But for the most part, it's going to look and even be more effective than we've seen for quite some time. As we know, just really the corruption continues despite all of that. So that's something we will continue to face. There are some surprises for the president in the course later this month and then over the course of the next few months. So he is continuing to be very wary about what he does reveal about his plans, and he still has some other unexpected things to face, perhaps in the shape of some things becoming visible, things coming to light which he didn't expect to come to light. They may or may not relate to him. That I don't know. But it does look like he's still dealing with putting out some fires in that regard. There continue to be huge issues with relation to unrest. We've seen an enormous amount of that in Senegal in the last few weeks, and that whether it's there and elsewhere, that continues to show. Traditionally in astrology we see this as labor unrest, but it's not exclusively that kind of thing. It's any kind of unrest that might be challenging the government in that way or creating a lot of chaos. And that kind of chaos, be it people rioting or whatever the case may be, that continues to show strongly in the chart at this time, especially over the next week or maybe two. So especially in the very last stages of October, we still have to manage those things carefully and go carefully. I mean, for all of us, we can also learn to tiptoe a little more at this time and be careful what we're doing and saying to all of those around us. In terms of the coronavirus crisis, South Africa has seen itself largely performing quite well over the last month or 6 weeks. And as you no doubt know, our figures have continued to remain fairly low and fairly stable despite the increase in opening up the economy. That much is good news. But what we also see happening in the chart is increased changing relationships with the international community. Part of that is no doubt related to the ongoing challenges and issues of opening the border. South Africa has recently increased by a large amount the list of countries that are allowed to visit South Africa, and the chart does clearly warn that the health crisis will be on the increase as the month progresses. As much as we're raring to go and raring to move forward, one of the dangerous ways astrologically to scupper our own success is to start allowing situations where it simply starts becoming out of control because more and more people are coming into the country. Not sure how they can handle that one, but it's certainly the lesson for us and the lesson for government is that this is a time to manage international relationships very carefully. Bottom line is we need to stand strong, we need to stand firm, we need to be clear that we are a country that remains largely on top of the situation, and we cannot allow pressures of other countries or the other industries or anything like that to actually break that wariness down. So for the most part, we are in a strong position, but as I said, we're strong but in a very unstable situation of managing things widely going up and down. So this is perhaps the time where most importantly we need to stay the course, not get distracted by the explosions on the one hand and the fireworks on the other hand. Maintaining a calm demeanor will see us through to the next month where we finally start gaining some strength and stability. Aries, you can finally launch ahead with some of what has been percolating around your plate for the longest time. New goals that you've been working on, and especially things that are a little out there and at the edge. This is a great time to be putting your own agenda forward and really benefiting from it. The main area of focus in your chart, Aries, at the moment is in your professional life. You're going to find work improving, work opportunities improving, and work results improving. It is going to be necessary to show your individuality, take it a little bit to the edge and see what can really happen. But if you're willing to do that, and especially if that means becoming involved in something new or different in some way, this is really going to work very successfully for you. Be aware that you might be coming on a little bit strong or forceful, and especially if you're with new colleagues or in a new working environment or anything like that, tact is going to be called for. And when you can see the prize so clearly ahead of you, and when you can see that things are working really well for you, your enthusiasm can be your own worst enemy. So calm it down a little bit, maintain that calmness, work together, and your own personal goals will be easily achieved. Taurus, this is a great time to pursue some of your bigger, wilder ideals. In order to do that, you're also going to have to show some of your more unusual side, not something you show easily. And in fact, that is what is challenged during this month. You know, as an earth signs are often very conservative or simple in their presentation and very real. And for the most part, most of the time, that really works for you. Don't make any mistake. Those characteristics are beneficial ones for you. But at this particular time, in order for you to meet your goals, it looks like another side of you has to be revealed, and it's up to you to reveal it. So that means dressing a little bit more unusually than maybe you dress, and most importantly, revealing some of your wilder goals. You know, people often think of you as predictable, and this is the time to show that you're not predictable, that you have some wild ideas up your sleeve. It's a great time to be that inventor, idea person. There is some reliance on other people in this, and quite frankly, that's not going to pay off very well. So the more you can focus on yourself and do it your own way and not have to rely on others, this unusual strategy is really going to work this month. Go to the edge. Geminis, you might not like this, but the world is not quite ready for you. You might be ready to rush out there. You've been confined for long enough. All of those things remain true. But Gemini, this is the one last step. Gather your forces. The last stages of either working behind the scenes or planning something that's behind the scenes are coming into play this month, and you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot too soon. In fact, your chart shows this is a month where you can discover new information or resources or people who can be helpful to your bigger goals. And that's what you also don't want to be in such a rush that you don't even notice that. So venture into territories that you don't normally go to. Explore, research different areas. The resources you need are available to you. They're just not going to be found in the usual places. A little bit of innovation and insight is what's going to work for you to uncover these new resources. You might feel called or pulled to something new, and if that's anything to do with your roots, your foundation, your family, or your home, this is the time to say, yes, let me answer that and see what happens. And only when we get to December can you worry about going back out into the world in your usual full style. Cancerians, you might be feeling a little overwhelmed by everything and everyone that is depending on you so heavily at the moment. And one of the best things you can do is draw your energies back to yourself. Your natural tendency to look after everyone else, as well as the fact that at this time everyone has been so demanding and draining of all those energies, is getting a bit too far. And it looks like you might be suffering from a little bit of melancholy, sadness. You know, sometimes that looks like depression, even though it isn't quite the same thing as depression. So it's just about getting your own emotional strength back in order. This is a great time to do playful things, childish things, to connect back to those things that most make you feel like yourself. Of course, as a Cancerian, home and family are big ingredients in what makes you feel like yourself, but also just to nurture yourself a little bit and not have to rely on your relationships with the others around you or people around you in order for that to happen. You know, Cancerians are said to be like crabs, like tortoises, like people who like to occasionally hide in their castle, and you won't get much opportunity to do that, but you're going to have to make a little bit of space just to kind of get a chance to be with yourself, to lick your own wounds, to get back your strength before you go back there into the world. Leo, you need to be very clear this month who you are and where you stand. Leos have no problem taking charge, and that's fortunate because you're going to have to do that this month. But some of the things you're going to have to take charge of include your financial situation as well as your sense of your own value or importance in whatever it is that you're doing. It could be that little by little others have tended to take the reins more or are having more of an influence on what you're doing, might even be having an influence in how you're spending. As much as this is probably going to be a little bit of an expensive time for you, you've got to be careful to keep your own eyes on those purse strings. It's not that anyone's out to get you or deceive you, it just looks like that's not quite in control. Even with regards to yourself, there is a warning in the chart against impulsive spending or allowing yourself to be a little careless and spend more than you intended on what's necessary for you to get some of these goals achieved. It is a great time to get goals achieved. So if you're more disciplined about yourself, the money, and be very clear on the boundaries with respect to the people that are helping you, this is a great time to build a solid foundation for the work and success that follows in the months ahead. Virgos, you're not known for your wildest of ideas, but like some of the other earth signs this month, you need to get some of those wild ideas out into the ocean, out into the world. They don't have to be so wild, they just have to be your own personal ideas. The opportunities to think outside of the box and to benefit from thinking outside of the box, and you've really got to make those happen for you at this time. It does look like there's help from those around you, and family relationships look really beneficial at this time. In fact, apart from goals, this might just be a good time for family matters, for resolving them, for just spending time with family, anything that's going to really make those connections stronger in your life at this time. In terms of the thinking out of the box ideas, this is really a time when you can make changes in your life that you've struggled to make change in the past. So this is a time where you have more courage and more energy, but you're still going to make it happen. You tend to be highly self-critical, and it's your own self-criticism that is getting in the way. Be careful not to overanalyze your situation at this time. Thinking out of the box also in astrology means just diving right into it all and seeing what happens. That's how to make your November work for you. Libra, you've been managing an even keel for quite a long time now, and things are going great, but you're tending to lose control of that ship a little bit by getting caught up in other people's stuff and other people's goals, and this can be a little bit confusing for you. You need to be very clear of what you need to achieve and what you have been trying to achieve. It's a little bit like your stuff is fine, but gradually other people are leading you astray or confusing you, and that's mostly because of their stuff, nothing really to do with your stuff at all. So you need to be clear on what you are trying to achieve and what you need to achieve. Like your Virgo friends in the next door sign, you're also looking at things a little bit too closely and might be a little harsh on yourself or picky, not only on yourself but also on those around you. So again, just be more clear about what it is you need, what it is you've been trying to achieve. The momentum from the last month or two is going to work for you as long as you don't let it get caught up into someone else's ideals, which will tend to overwhelm you at this time and waylay you from your own. Focus on what's yours. Maybe they can benefit from you for once. Scorpio, this month is all about getting back to basics and being very clear on what you are trying to achieve from that. It is the month of one extreme to the other. You'll have lots of highs and lows this month, and that means both in terms of your personal relationships with people, where you'll find your close relationship seems to go from one extreme to another. Everything's fantastic and then everything's challenging, and you'll find that in your professional life as well, where things will seem to veer between working very well for you and then not really working at all for you. And you not only need to find a middle path, but you need to appreciate that's not going to change anything, that you mustn't be pulled in too many different directions. That means you need to be clear on what your own purpose is, what your own agenda is in whatever the situation may be, and enforce that in some way. Professional goals will come out really strongly at this time. It's absolutely your go for it month. Whatever's been holding back, now's the time to break through. Whatever leadership you need to exercise, now's the time to break through. Those things are really going to matter for you. And you're also going to get an opportunity to pursue a goal that you've had for a very long time. Sagittarius, this is a time when a lot of your energy seems to come to naught. It's a little bit like you're putting a lot of energy into things and then it pans out. And it's that lot of energy that you've got to look at right at the beginning. Are you putting your energy into the right things at all? Doesn't look like it. Wasted direction, wasted effort, people who don't need it or appreciate it or anything like that. It's time to rope in some of that and put it where it counts most. For your own projects and in terms of your relationships. There does look like there's quite a bit of challenge in your relationship at this time. There's both a situation of you're not gaining from the relationship and your partner is not benefiting from the relationship either. It might look like it might be that there's time for renegotiation and making sure that both of you gain. Relationships are a little bit like financial relationships. There's little point in a partnership unless both people gain. And in your relationships at this time, sometimes it's you, sometimes it's the other person, but it doesn't look like there's an equal distribution of gains or the fruits of efforts. Make sure that you're both putting as much into it and you're both getting as much out of it. This is the time to fix that. Capricorn also have the focus on relationships at this time. For those Capricorns that are not involved in a relationship, this does look like something important could come up at this time. Most likely in terms of personal one-to-one romantic style relationships, but also important partnerships or business partnerships or anywhere else where a one-to-one relationship has the potential to really benefit you at this particular time. Those of you in existing relationships need to be a little bit more careful and wary. The charts are showing that this is a time of some challenge in the relationship. You might be feeling restricted, you might be feeling as if you're getting nothing out of it or nothing back, and this is a time when you actually need to face some things and be clear about these things. It's time to cut the fluff and the unnecessary and the things that aren't really important or real or true and deal with what is real or true. A lot of the unnecessaries can be cut out. Get back down to basics, examine the core of the relationship and what brings us or holds us together and start rebuilding from that point of view. For those of you building new relationships at this time, the same rule applies. Keep out the fluff from the very beginning. Be very clear on what we both stand to gain, why we both need this relationship and what it's based on. You can build something very strong that way. Aquarians could also be facing some relationship challenges at this time. You might be feeling a little frustrated or stuck. You might even be feeling a little gloomy, and you need to admit that to yourself. Things are not going the way that you want them to go, but your ideals might be getting in the way. You're not really allowing yourself to see that. This is a great time to lean on people who you do know. Lean on friends whose love is reliable and actually look at those relationships which are much more reliable to you. It's not only about the personal stuff, it's also the same question that plagues your Capricorn and Sagittarian friends nearby you, as in, how has this relationship gone out of balance? And it does look like you might be either fooling yourself or having the wool pulled over your eyes for how much you're actually not getting out of this relationship. You need to be willing to put your foot down, to be a little bit more selfish, to be a little bit more clear of why you're in it and what you stand to gain out of it or what you need to gain out of it, and that's going to make the relationship much more effective. In other kinds of relationships where you're depending on others for resources or money or anything like that, expect a little bit of disappointment. So some of the lesson this month for you might be learning to rely on yourself and be very clear about how it's your responsibility to pursue and meet your own ideals and not depend on others. Pisces, it looks like you might have done that Pisces thing of letting things slip through your fingers and all drift into a bit of vagueness. It's time to pull yourself back towards yourself and get some clarity about what you're trying to achieve, who's helping you achieve it, what you've got available to you, all the bits and pieces that help you fulfill some goals, because there are great opportunities to expand your horizons this month, but you want to do that with great clarity about what you want to get out of it. So it's a time to look back on the goals you have been pursuing or what has been going on in your life and clear out the stuff that isn't working, clear out the stuff that's vague, and pay attention to where you've let things slip away or slip through your fingers. This might mean it's time to take charge both of other people and of some of the resources, but the payoff will be huge. That exposure to new opportunities and new boundaries is great. For some Pisces, that's just going to mean travel to new places or exposure to new people, and that's going to be really helpful in getting some of your greater, grander ideals into place. It's a great opportunity this month to learn some new skills and discover some new opportunities. But to do that, let go of all the fluff and focus on what's real right now.